smoking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine little radio program known internationally as Smokin' and Toastin'. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And welcome. You have landed on show number 159. Think how many beers that is.
59.
Think how many beers
That's
that
a
is.
minimum of 3 beers per show times 159.
And sometimes more, like when we have someone here from a brewery, they'll often bring more than 3.
That's absolutely, that's like 500 beers easy.
I like it.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with that.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
Welcome to the show. Today's program will examine and explore the rules for drinking bourbon.
There's rules?
Apparently there are, yes.
All right. I want to know what these are. Which ones am I breaking?
These are good things to know, You know, if you're gonna drink bourbon, it's good to know the rules.
I always pull the cork out with my teeth and then just tip the bottle up.
Speaking of the rules, when I think of rules, particularly when it comes to whiskey, I think of our good buddy Chris Hart. And I was looking at the article that ran in Texas Monthly Magazine. Now, I realize outside of the state of Texas, this magazine's probably meaningless to you, but in Texas, it's kind of a big deal. Texas Monthly's a pretty big deal, right? So they had this article on Texas whiskey. Mm-hmm. It was a nice little article, profiled several different things, and then there was one of those little sidebar articles where they asked a whiskey expert.
Ask a whiskey expert?
Ask for a whiskey expert to name like 5 of the best Texas whiskeys. Guess who the expert was?
It wasn't me because I don't remember it. Or maybe it was because I was drinking. No, it wasn't me. I'm not an expert.
It was our buddy Chris Hart.
That's awesome. Nobody cares about that guy.
Nobody cares about that guy. And yet, somehow, he winds up being featured in Texas Monthly Magazine.
Dude, that's pretty awesome for him, man. I'm so glad to see.
I would just put that to the critics who tried to say that no one cared about him, that apparently someone does.
I am just super happy to see that guy getting the world of I was going to say the world of whiskey out to everybody, but that's actually an event, so it's not the world of whiskey. It's the Houston Whiskey Social out there.
Yeah.
But his whiskey knowledge, he loves to share it. That guy.
That's right. He's passionate about it, and that's what
he is so passionate about it. Like, he's been on this show enough times. You know how it is. You just say whiskey and watch him go.
What I love about him is when he arrives with more whiskey than we could possibly taste on one show.
Right, and it's all stuff that you can't possibly get.
I know. So that's just him. That's Chris. That's who he is. But I will say that in the 5 whiskeys that he names in the article, they all look like things that you can find. So that's worth checking out. So we'll have to have Chris on the show.
Did you happen to bring what that list was?
I didn't. I probably should have, but I felt like that was Chris's to present. So maybe we should have him on
we need to reach
the show
out to him.
and reach out to him, and do that. So we are brought to you by the fine folks at B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, by BB Italia on Memorial in Houston, BB Lemon on Washington Ave, the new Annie, and more. These guys are an expanding culinary empire.
Is Annie open yet?
I don't know for sure. But I drove past it earlier this week, and the light was on in the evening, like the big light on the outside.
Yeah.
So if they're not, they're close.
That's
so
awesome.
We'll find out. We'll get Jeremiah on and find out.
Have to try that out.
In fact, we actually planned to have Jeremiah on today, and we wound up having to reschedule. But he's a busy man. He's getting stuff ready for the sniff. The Whiskey Sniff 2019 is almost here. I mean, it's just a few weeks away.
I love how
now.
this works. We think up a great idea,
and
then we just hand it to him, and he does
it. Yeah. Well, we'll show up and to show people how to do the sniff and stuff.
The best part of that whole situation is, if the whiskey sniff, which it went so good last year, and when it goes great, we're like, yeah, that's our whiskey sniff.
Yeah, look at what we did.
If it goes wrong, it's like Jeremiah.
Yeah, what are you doing, buddy?
What happened, man?
So the way the Whiskey Sniff works is, first of all, the tickets are on sale, and they are selling fast. So you do need to try to get them, just in case. You want to get them before the event, just in case it sells out, because it sold out last year. We do have a few more tickets available this year and an expanded area, but you don't want to tempt fate because you don't want to miss this event. It is happening at B&B Butchers and Restaurant in Houston on the upper deck. We're going to have, I didn't know this until this year, but the walls of the upstairs indoor dining area totally contract.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have those open. You'll be able to go in and out, do the tasting, smoke your cigars out on the deck.
It's going to be so
It's going to be
cool.
great. So the tickets are available at Eventbrite. That's Eventbrite, BRITE.com. And if you go and buy a ticket, the tickets are $125. Now, that's not a cheap ticket, but what you get for it is way more than
I'm
worth
super excited
what
about
the-
that.
what
Yeah,
the price is.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Just going over the easy financials. I mean, how much is one good whiskey?
Right.
One not even high-end whiskey
Right, just
at most bars or
That's right.
restaurants. You're spending, $15 to $20.
Right. And you're going to have a chance
You
to
can
taste a
try
lot more than that.
tons of them.
Yeah, that's right. And when you get there, you get a bag with, some goodies in it. And included in those goodies will be a handful of cigars.
yeah.
You get to choose which cigar you want to smoke and try to pair. And then if later you want to light another one of the cigars and try to pair that one, you can do that too. I mean, the event's...
I'm going to do that.
Yeah. It starts at 6 p.m., and it is taking place on Wednesday, November the 6th. So we're just a few weeks away now. And it was so much fun last year. We're going to have representatives there with whiskeys, bourbons, and also a few other spirits as well that you will be able to pair with cigars. So it's kind of like the ultimate pairing event. Because if you think about it, if you go to a normal pairing event, and those can be a lot of fun, by the way, but that usually has... one whiskey or maybe several expressions of a particular company's
To pair
whiskey
with specific
to
things,
pair with a
right.
very specific cigar. In this case, you're going to have a handful of cigars in the bag. You get to choose which one you want to try, and then 100 different whiskey expressions that you would be able to
it's going
choose
to be
from.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of this is a pairing event. It's a very self-driven pairing event. So anybody showing up that doesn't know how to do this, it's super simple. Light your cigar.
Yep.
Get the flavor in your palate.
Right.
And then smell the whiskey.
And then smell the whiskey. And we're going to have all the whiskey samples poured into a Glencairn, make it really easy to pick up and sniff.
The way I said that makes me think of that what is it, the Spinal Tap scene where he's like, what? She's smelling the glove.
Smell the glove.
Smell the glove. For those of you who don't know what that means, just watch Spinal Tap. But anyway, no, yeah, and then you smell the whiskey, and the one that smells appropriate is going to be the one that goes with your cigar. And then once you finish that whiskey, you just do it again because now you have the flavor of the whiskey and your cigar, and then there's going to be another expression that's going to.
And as we
smell
pointed out, your cigar may
appropriate.
change a bit as you're smoking it. It could be a different whiskey will pair beautifully with it, once you're halfway in.
Yeah, and basically what we're saying here is smoke cigars, drink whiskey. It's hard to go wrong with that.
It really is. And, this is what I really love about this is that we had a very successful event the first year. This one's going to be a little bit bigger. If this one is as successful as it appears that it's going to be, our plan, because we know both of these have been in Houston, but our plan will be to try to roll this out in different locations around the country.
That's going to be amazing.
So imagine this, Ian, if your job is to go to different cool cities in the United States where you will be tasked with pairing cigars and whiskey.
That's going to be a very tough job.
I mean, it's
but
gonna be
this is a
difficult to do.
challenge,
Yes.
and I do love a challenge, and I will rise up to
You're
this.
willing to accept it.
I'm really willing to accept
like
this.
it.
I do want to plug real quick. If you listen to us on podcast, fantastic. If you watch us on Facebook, fantastic. You can always go on Facebook and search for the latest episode or even an old one. But it's real easy to find, especially very specific things we talked about. If you listen to the show and you go, "What was that whiskey they talked about?" or "What was that beer that tasted like this?" You can go to our YouTube page, and you can look up. We have that. It's a lot of the episodes are now being separated into just the sections. You can watch it as a whole entity, or you can watch it in just the section that you want to see, those kind of things. And when you go on there, man, we'd appreciate it if you hit the like button, if you hit the subscribe button, and there's a little bell next to the subscribe button that'll give you notifications every time we post something new and fun.
Which is
it's going to
cool.
come up. Yeah, it's going to come right up there. So
it's something we appreciate, and also it's a very easy way for you to kind of spread it to other people, to just tell them to go to the YouTube page.
And frankly, I know this is during the workday, and I know there's some of you out there that sneak this in while you're at work. I'm talking to you, Brian. But and Jeff, I see you on there too.
We have more to discuss about Brian, by the way, before the show's over.
So yeah, if you want to watch it at your leisure, or listen to it at your leisure, if you want to put it on the background when you get home instead of make out music, I understand. I do that myself.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, and it's also great for listening to in the car. When you're
That's right.
When
you're in the mood.
around. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you got the window down and you're smoking a cigar.
You just crank our voices in the car. You know how some people have the booming system? You just crank us talking about whiskey.
Yeah, so instead of like
That's
the guys
hardcore.
that drive past my building that always seem to have Cardi B cranked up, you could have us,
I would like to say that we're probably better to listen to for your intellectual health than Cardi
We're
B.
definitely less annoying than Cardi B. There's no question. And I'm going to go on record now as saying, pretty sure we've all got more talent.
Did you hear how PC what I said was?
Yeah,
That was
it
amazing.
was
wasn't
very well said. It was very well said. I appreciate that. So show number 159, the rules for drinking bourbon on today's show, and
There are rules.
A very, very important Nick Jonas update. As you know, we've sort of adopted Nick Jonas after he appeared on the cover of Nick Jonas from the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
He appeared on the cover of Cigar Aficionado smoking a cigar, got big backlash from people that said he was doing a horrible thing by encouraging children to smoke. Somehow that got translated to that. I don't know how. So we've sort of adopted Nick, and then, well, let's just say there's further wrinkles, thanks to our buddy Wiki Brian, who sent me an article.
Saw that.
There's further wrinkles.
We're going to talk
week,
about
so
that.
We'll talk about that. Plus, still we're going to bring you up to date on the latest Nick Jonas news, because I know you're breathlessly awaiting the latest. Nick Jonas.
I am.
update.
You know, I love when I walk in here. You always have this show sheet.
Just with some ideas of what we might talk about on the
ideas.
show.
I'm just going to point that up at the camera right
there.
there.
You go.
And I always kind of skim over it, and I don't generally look up this stuff because I want, my reactions to be real and visceral, if you will.
Right, you're a real kind of guy.
I just used that word. That was awesome.
I like that.
One of these on here that I see is 11 not bad alcoholic beers.
No, 11 not bad non-alcoholic.
Or not
Yes.
bad non-alcoholic beers. Sorry, I missed a word in there.
That's
I want to point something out. When
Yeah?
you call something not bad, you are not calling it good,
Okay, I get it.
right?
But-
and when you call something non-alcoholic,
You're not calling it a beer.
you're not calling it good.
Well, so the title fits, right? That's actually been on the list for a while, and we've never quite gotten to it on the show. So hopefully,
That's like having better
Hopefully soon.
wounds.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get wounded, that's a good one to have. I don't know.
Okay, so while we're on the kind of on the downer side here, could your favorite beer wind up tasting like medicine soon? It could happen. I'll tell you why that's a possibility.
that sounds like a scare tactic.
It is a scare tactic. I feel like Fox News right now.
Right.
I really do. Your favorite beer could wind up tasting like medicine.
That's right.
And children could be harmed. Film at 11.
Drinking water.
Yeah.
Is it not as good as the doctors say?
Yeah, right.
What?
Exactly.
News at 10.
Yes. Plus, Nick Jonas is not the only celebrity we'll report on today. David Ortiz, the baseball player, Big Papi.
Big Papi.
Yes. He's a cigar smoker, and he recently came up with the greatest response ever to people objecting to him smoking a cigar. So we'll cover that. on the
I
show
totally
today.
want to hear that.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. Plus, Bud Light and Coors Light accounting for less than 2% of self-pour sales. That's an interesting new statistic that crept into our view this week. So
Now
we have
that's
that to look
that's
forward to.
interesting.
Yeah. And on the show today, some really interesting beverages will be tasted. Adroit Theory. We've tasted some of their bigger beers before. This week we'll be tasting their Strictly for My Grind Kolsch. So a crisp Kolsch.
Looking forward to that.
Try saying that really fast 5 times.
Strictly for my grind,
Kolsch.
Crisp Kolsch.
And Dogfish Head has stepped boldly into the local IPA world.
That's a weird Like, so they have two beers that are a little weird to me, and I love Dogfish Head. They're so awesomely over the top about everything.
Right, because if you're drinking a 90-minute or a 120, I mean, those beers are just like unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
But
and
they're
of
big.
course, and
They're huge.
they've built their whole brewing reputation on being just whack, just crazy outside, wonderful.
So it would
you know?
stand to reason, and I have not sampled this beer, but it would stand to reason that if they're going to put their name on a low-calorie IPA, I bet it's pretty good.
It's gonna have to be because their session IPA that they did was a great. That was that the All Day?
No, that All Day is Founders.
All Day is Founders. No. What's the session IPA? Oh, the Sequench Ale is the one I'm thinking of.
yes.
Sorry, that's the Dogfish Head. The Sequench Ale, the salt and a little bit sour. That was really good. They just never do normal, so I'm so interested to see what's going to happen.
It's going to be interesting. It's called Slightly Mighty. That's the name
Slightly
of it.
Mighty.
Slightly
That's
Mighty,
nice.
which is a very Dogfish Head-ish name.
It is. It
Yes.
is.
And from our friends at 903 Brewers, we've had a number of their great beers, and already sitting on Mr. Twirligig right now for tasting later is the Sasquatch Reserve Oak-Aged Imperial Chocolate Milk Stout.
Man, that's a lot to
And
say.
I'll point out that Sasquatch Reserve is something they do regularly, but this is a variant of the Sasquatch Reserve. So really excited about being able to taste this one as well. And they do this box, so when it's on the shelf, it looks kind of like it's one of those really special bottles, but the box actually holds two 12-ounce cans, which I think is awesome.
Oh, I've seen that before. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Awesome.
I have to tell you, so I always send out an email before we do our show to every one of the breweries, just letting them know, hey, we're going to talk about your beer today. And I've been getting such great responses from all the breweries. So just hands out to all the breweries out there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And thank you guys for brewing awesome beer.
Yes,
and
we
even the guys
appreciate
that brew the beers that I don't like so much, thanks for brewing anyway.
Yeah, well, there really haven't been that many of those.
No, that's harder to find.
Yeah, it definitely is. Also hard to find is a rum I don't like, so we'll see how we do today with the Dos Madeiras 5+5 triple-aged rum. Not only is this rum aged in 3 different casks, but it's aged in 3 different casks in 3 different countries.
Oh, wow.
So this is a kind of a different approach. So, people are trying these different things to impact the aging on different spirits and beers, and so we'll see how that comes together. But I'm looking forward to that. So a lot of great things on the show today, and we're really excited. And it's nice to be back in the studio. I love the live shows, but always nice to be in the comfort of the studio where I can ask you, as I like to do about this time every show, if you smoked anything interesting this week.
Let me think about that for a minute. Hell yes.
All right, good. Talk to me about it.
I picked up, so my humidor is generally filled with much larger cigars, much more time commitments, and sometimes I don't have time. So I try to pick up smaller cigars from time to time. So I picked up a 4.5 by 50 Rothschild made by Hoyo La Amistad by
nice.
AJ Fernandez. This was the black, the Maduro.
Yeah.
Have you had this one?
I have.
Oh, man.
So I'm
Have you
interested.
reviewed this one?
I have not reviewed it, but I've had
Let me
it.
tell you something. This is a 4x50
Let me just say,
Rothschild.
in case anyone is new to the show, I am a bona fide AJ Fernandez fanboy.
Oh, yeah.
He's my hero of the cigar
Well,
world.
this had everything you would ever want in it and chocolate. And lots of chocolate. This
Yes.
is a chocolate
Okay.
bomb.
Okay, good. You smoked the same cigar I smoked. because yes.
This is Ecuadorian Sumatra, Oscuro wrapper, and then Nicaraguan fillers. It's very, very AJ. The appearance, it's dark brown, semi-smooth wrapper with some veins, very firm feel and construction. Very classy bands on it. I like the bands. I probably should have taken a little bit better picture there, but I was rushed around while I was doing this. Sorry. The construction just looked great on it. The pre-light sniff on this, I mean, I pulled this out of the cellophane, and it smelled like chocolatey chocolate with some coffee and chocolate. I mean, it was like dark chocolate bomb. It was absolutely crazy how chocolate it smelled. If I didn't know any better, it would have just been a chocolate bar. The pre-light draw, I used a punch, and I used a small punch because that's what my lighter had on it. And it was effortless draw. Dark, semi-sweet chocolate, coffee, leather, rich earth, and pepper all through this. And this is just the pre-light draw. That's how complex that was.
Now, this cigar is a Hoyo de Monterey cigar,
Yes.
but AJ did the blending on it.
And they call it the La Amistad Black. So, and the Hoyo de Monterey's are great anyway. That
Yes.
dark Sumatra is so good. You know,
It
it's
is.
so good. Anyway, the initial light on this was pepper
Yeah.
and some more pepper with pepper. Then it had peppery chocolate.
And that
And
doesn't
then-
seem like it would be good, but it is.
And then it developed into peppery chocolate and coffee.
Yep.
And it was delicious the entire way. Now, when I say pepper, don't be turned off by this because the pepper was big. But the pepper calms down pretty quick, and the other flavors start popping up pretty fast. And it happened within just the first few puffs of the light. Like, it happened quickly. The first third of this, the pepper calmed down substantially. It's still there, and it still had a little bit of spicy pepper in the background. And we're talking like a little almost like a cayenne, but not with a lot of the burn that you get from cayenne and stuff like that, and some black pepper. The chocolate and coffee come right up to the front. There's a little sweet creaminess to the finish of this. Perfect burn, solid ash. The construction on this cigar was just so impressive. The whole second third of the cigar, all of the above was still going on, and rich earth came in. You kind of started tasting those flavors, a little more sweetness, a touch more spice. Not more pepper, but a little more spiciness. Pardon me. And some of the baking spices and things like that. Solid ash, perfect burn. The last third of the cigar. The earth and coffee came right up front on this. This was very much evolving. And then the bitter chocolate and sweet spice on the finish followed that up. The last third of this was absolutely fantastic. I would call this on the high end of a medium profile, or maybe the low end of a full profile as far as the strength goes. This had a solid ash, perfect burn, price to quality. I paid between $7 and $8 for the cigar, I think.
Yep.
That sounds about right. If that's what I paid for this, I give it a solid 7. I will buy these all day long. I will buy a box of these.
Yes, absolutely. You know what I love so much about AJ's blending? You mentioned, when you were talking about this cigar, like 8, 9 different things that you were getting in the cigar.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so much complexity in the way that he blends that it has a tendency, I'll be honest, to spoil me for some other cigars. Some other cigars that are, even things that are considered to be pretty good. They just aren't as complex. They may have great flavors, but they don't have that same, you don't just get that same chance to really kind of work through it and enjoy it the same way.
Well, now, don't get me wrong, because I've had some great cigars that are kind of one-dimensional, and I don't mean that in any bad way.
No, I
that
know what you
one-trick
mean.
pony that does that one trick is a really good trick.
Right.
And sometimes that's what you want, but I like to try new stuff all the time, and I like stuff that evolves and makes me excited to try more and more of it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these AJ blends do that, and I'm getting to be a bit of a fanboy anyway, because I don't think I've had a bad cigar by now.
I really like the stuff he's doing today better than the blends, some of the blends that are his older blends, like some of the stuff you can get on Cigar International and stuff that are older AJ blends. That they're good, don't get me wrong, but things like the Ave Maria and some of those are good cigars. The Diesels, they're good cigars, but they just don't have quite the same complexity as the stuff that he's been doing over the last several years.
I think he's coming into his own as a blender, much like a producer does in music.
Yes, I think that's right.
In the case where he can walk in and see what a company has and go, oh, I can do something with this.
Right, I can take a little of
I
this
can
and
really
a little
make
of
this.
this. And
He's
really,
like the Butch Vig of.
I like that. He's the Butch Vig of
The
cigars.
Butch Vig of cigars, right?
I love it. Yeah, the Butch Vig or Alan Parsons,
right?
For those of you who are from a different.
If you're going further back, right?
Yeah, right. I like it. Well, I had something interesting this week that I had not had before, and I thought I would talk about it. I smoked the San Cristobal Classico Robusto. And this is a really nice-looking cigar. A few veins. It's medium brown in color. Really nice band. The artwork on the band is gorgeous. The San Cristobal band is just. And it's a Nicaraguan cigar. It was blended by Don Pepin Garcia. They use a Nicaraguan Corojo wrapper and Nicaraguan binder and fillers. And I'll just say up front, I'd read some reviews on this cigar that were like raving about it. So my expectations were pretty high.
Pretty high.
Yep. Pre-Light gave a kind of a straightforward tobacco note, a little bit of wheat and nuts, which now surprised me a little because this is Nicaraguan tobacco. So I'm expecting
You expect the peppery.
the earth and the pepper that you were talking about in the AJ blend. But I was getting instead kind of a, like I said, straightforward tobacco, a little bit of weediness, some nuts. I used a punch. It lit easily. It burned like a champ the whole way through, by the way. But even from the very beginning, you know when you light a cigar and you smoke like the first quarter inch of it and you look at that burn, you go, oh, this one's going to burn well. It was one of those type of things. There was some light spice on the palate from the very beginning with some notes of wood and nuts as the cigar smoked further in. Kind of what I was expecting from the pre-light sniff. I will say I was expecting a bit more of a punch strength-wise. Again, knowing that it's Nicaraguan tobacco, and from some of the reviews that I had read that were putting it at, medium plus, almost full-bodied, I wasn't really getting that from this cigar. It was definitely, to me, this was on the mild to medium side. So that's not, I don't dislike that. It wasn't what I was expecting.
Right.
And I guess that's kind of the headline on this cigar for me, is it wasn't quite what I was expecting. The spicy pepper was nice. It was not too strong. But, in all honesty, I was expecting a bit more complexity from this, especially given the reviews. Now, San Cristobal it's a fairly expensive brand. This isn't a budget brand.
Right.
So I kind of kept waiting for the cigar to sort of warm up and really, not warm up literally, but, for it to kind of hit its stride and start bringing a little more complexity in than it ultimately did. I want to say this. It was a very pleasant smoke. I enjoyed it a lot, and maybe my expectations were set a little bit too high for this one. I'd read they were full-bodied. They received really high reviews in some of the cigar magazines. From my experience, though, this $8 to $9 Robusto was good. Not great. Good. Price to quality, 5. Barely. Because I think you can do better for $8 or $9.
What was the price?
It was $8 or $9. $8 to $9, yeah. And I feel like compared to the cigar that you talked about, this wasn't nearly as good, and that cigar is in the same price range, maybe a little less. So I'm just, I almost would have given it like a 4.8 or a 4.9. But based on the other reviews, maybe my expectations were just off. That can happen. You ever eat a good steak, but you were kind of in the mood for a hamburger, and it just doesn't quite come across the same way. It could have been that type of thing. But in any case, I enjoyed it, but it's not one that I'm gonna probably be looking to buy a box of anytime soon.
Oh wow!
So there you go. The San Cristobal Classico Robusto. And you know what? Maybe I should buy another one or two and see if I have a similar experience.
If you get
it could have been a one-off.
If you rate something at a 5, where you get what you pay for,
Right.
and maybe your expectations were off, I think that's fair. I think trying another one is definitely fair, because you might find maybe it's one of those off days. Maybe
Right.
your palate's off. We've all had days where we ate too much spicy stuff, or we had something that just kind of
something
wrecked
that
our
didn't
palate.
really go for it.
Or a good hangover will wreck your palate.
or quite frankly, sometimes a really good IPA will wreck your palate.
That will definitely wreck your palate.
And you just don't get the same complexity out of the cigar. So anyway, yeah, worth trying again. I would definitely try it again. But I found myself being really glad it wasn't a $12 cigar. And there are plenty of $12 San Cristobals out there. So
right.
You can very easily pay that for them if you get to that size. So okay, when we come back, we're going to start with our tasting. We are going to taste this Kolsch that I mentioned. That is from the folks at Adroit Theory Brewing. They are a very well-respected and highly rated brewery. Plus, the Nick Jonas update. I know you've been waiting. We'll get there next. It's Smoking and Toasting. Thanks for coming along for show number 159, and we will be right back.